Okay, hey, welcome back to the channel. Today we have kind of a special one for me. I don't think I've ever posted a solve of a Sandra and Nala puzzle. If you've not seen any of them, they're all excellent. They're just wonderful pieces of art, I would almost say, in terms of Sudoku. Uh, they're almost always, I think they are always Fog of War videos, which are one of my favorites. So it's probably partly why I enjoy them so much, but they have such beautiful stories to them. And so let's get into this one. I mean, I'm sure a bunch of people have already covered this one, so I'm not expecting to have a huge viewership of this one, but I want to do it because I think it's going to be awesome. So that's my motivation here. So anyway, let's get into this puzzle and its rules, and I'm almost positive it's going to be amazing. So let's just get at it. So it's called 3 a.m. by Sandra and Nala. And let's start reading, because there's usually a bit of a story element in these things, which is always fun. So it's the middle of the night when Nala finds traces in the backyard. Someone was there while she was sleeping earlier. Now she woke up and needs to find out more about the backyard intruder. Where had they been? How did they come in and how did they leave? Did they even leave? Wake up, Sandra. So we get into the rules. So we've got normal Sudoku rules apply. So place the digits 1 through 9, once each in every row, column, and 3x3 box. Exactly once each, as I just said. Then we have Mobius Strip, which I'm not entirely familiar with this, so we're going to learn together, I guess. Row numbers that are summed to 10 are connected along the left and right sides of the grid. Okay. Now, I thought I saw a marker on one of these. I'm not sure if it's going to come into play. For example, row 1, column 1, and row 9, column 9 are considered orthogonally adjacent, as are row 2, column 1, and row 8, column 9. Row 3, column 1, row 7, column 9, etc., etc. So what that means, if you're looking at this row here, normally these two would have nothing to do with each other. But now, with the Mobius strip constraint, this digit, you could just kind of assume it's sitting right here in this little space. Same goes for this digit. You could assume it's sitting in this space here. And I'm sure that's going to interact with other rule sets that we have. So, and says, continuing this, letters outside the grid can be used to help with orientation, which is wonderful, because it doesn't mean I have to completely memorize exactly which ones are which. So we see H to H, E to E, etc., etc., are lining up together as adjacencies. So next we've got the grid is covered. There's partially covered in fog. Entering correct digits will clear the fog from surrounding cells, possibly revealing more clues. So if you were to guess what this digit was, and we don't like to guess in these puzzles, but using it as an example, if you were to guess this digit, all of the surrounding digit or areas would be revealed by the fog of war. Now, find the hidden path that runs through the grid by following these rules. The path starts in row 1, which is this one, column 7, which is here, and ends on a similarly, wow, I couldn't say that word very well, marked cell that is hidden somewhere in the fog. Paw prints have cosmetic purpose only. So this one, the little paw prints and the box around it, I'll remove that so you can see the box around it, denotes that this is the start of the path, and we need to move in some way, which we're going to find out eventually, to another said given endpoint. The path only moves orthogonally, so only up, down, left, right, and never diagonally, so we can't do that. The path can touch itself diagonally, so it could do, let's see, something like this, where these touch diagonally. However, it's not allowed to touch orthogonally, so we couldn't do something like this. That does not work, i.e. no cell in the path can share edges with more than 2 other cells on the path. Adjacent digits along the path have a difference of at least 5, so the path itself is going to be a German whispers line, but it's not a visible German whispers line. It just is a rule constraint. Now we go into a killer cage scenario. So the small number in the top left corner of a dashed cage are the sum of the digits that are not on the path in each cage, which is an interesting little rule. So let's say this 5 is just these 2 digits. Now, if path were to somehow do this, let's say, this 5 cage that we've just assumed is a 2 spot, it doesn't have to be, would mean that this digit has to be a 5, because the part that's on the path does not count. Correct. I said that correctly. So the small number are the sum of the digits that are not on the path. Digits cannot repeat within their own cage like a normal killer cage. And then our final rule is digits in cells that are connected by a white dot are consecutive. So these are Kropki dots. So these 2 digits are consecutive. These 2 digits are consecutive. It means that this is like a 4. This could be a 3 or a 5. And then digits in cells that are connected by a black dot are in a 1-to-2 ratio. Not all possible dots are given, i.e. there's no negative constraint. So on the black dots, these have to be in a 1-to-2 ratio or 2-to-1 ratio. However, some people like to say it the other way. It doesn't matter to me. It is what it is. But it just means that whatever this digit is, this one has to be either half or double what the other digit is. And those are the rules. So let's scroll this up so we can see the wonderful little intro story. And let's get started on this and see what we can figure out. So, being that it is a fog of war, there's not a ton of info to start with, or not a lot of clues to start with. So we should probably be looking, at our black Kropki dots. And up here, the first thing I see is that, well, to bring more information into it, if you haven't seen any of these videos or you don't know what black Kropki dots are, I doubt that's true for most people, but we're going to go over it anyway, just in case you have not seen black Kropki dots, is that there's only certain digits that can go on a black Kropki dot. Now, there are 3 of them that cannot go on it. A 5 cannot go on a black Kropki dot. Why is that? Well, if you put a 5 in a black Kropki dot, the one on the other cell that's connected by it has to either be half or double, so 2.5 or 10. So clearly that can't work. 7 is the same way because you have to have 3.5 or 14. And then 9 is the other one, which would have to be 4.5 or 18. None of those are normal Sudoku digits. So what does that say? Well, the remaining digits that can be on a black Kropki dot are 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. Now, 3 and 6 only work together. You can never have a 3, 6, 3, obviously, because you'd be repeating in the same cell or the same region. Now, you could have something like this be a 3, if there was a black dot here, a 3, 6, 3, that does work. But when we're looking at in a line, in a row, or in a certain region, you can never use, if you have more than one Kropki dot connecting digits, you can never use 3 and 6 because they just do not work. So that tells us that these digits, I'm going to make sure I get into my correct type of designation so I'm not accidentally typing any digits into this, are 1, 2, 4, and 8. Now, this digit can never be 1 because it would force both of these to be 2. This digit can never be 8 because it would force both of these to be 4. So we get a little bit of information. Now, the question is, or a question I should say is, and there's some other things we can work out down there, but I'm going to stay here for a second, is can this be from 1, 2, 4, and 8? And the answer is going to be yes at the moment. Because if this was 4, 8, let's say, this could still be 1, 2, 4 like that. So that's not going to give us what we want at the moment. Now, we can start with our path rule. Like I said, the hidden path that runs through the grid must have German whisper type rule sets, so that adjacent digits must be 5 away from each other. So we know the path starts here. So let's start green. Let's do a green circle to denote where our path starts, and we'll do a green circle at the very end when we figure out where it is. Now, can this path go either direction? And the answer is no, either left or right is what I mean. We can't go diagonally, we know that. It cannot go left or right. Because if this was a 2, let me get out of that so I can click on it without it doing something. If this digit was a 2, these would be 1 and 4. Neither one of them is 5 away. If this was a 4, this would have to be 2 and 8. Neither one of those is 5 away. So we're forced to move our path down this way, which means that this digit has to be 5 away from either of these 2 digits, which means it has to be a high digit. And this is where we're going to get into some basics of German whispers, where the digits on a German whisper change in terms of high or low. There's what, 3 really important things about German whispers. 1, you can never put a 5 on a German whisper, because if you did, you'd have to have a 0 or a 10 on the other side of it. The other is that, like I said, the digits change in terms of whether they're high or low. So if they're low, they're 1, 2, 3, 4. If they're high, they're 6, 7, 8, 9. So we know that this is already a low digit, and I could mark that. We'll do low as, let's do blue, and we'll do high as orange. That's just tends to be kind of the coloring scheme I like to do with these sorts of things. Now, this could get, we could have a lot of different types of markings in this solve, but it's going to be worth it, I think, at the end. So we know this is low, this has to be high. This just means this has to be 6, 7, 8, or 9. Now, if we knew what this digit was, we could make a better determination of what this is, but we do not. So I'm not going to go too far into that. I just wanted to get that, those ideas started in everyone's minds so that we understand them as we move forward. And then I can do a little bit less explaining and more solving, which I'm sure everyone would enjoy. So we can continue with our path because we know that any digit that goes here, these 2 digits have to be adjacent to it. They must be consecutive. So there's no way that you could take this digit and go up or down 5. So our path must move. And again, we cannot cross a black Kropki dot with our path because the way that a Kropki dot works, it does not allow for that to happen. So we must move back down again. Now we do know that we can't go this way because then we would be touching orthogonally. We cannot do that. So it either goes down or it goes right. At this moment, we cannot determine which of those is which. But we can say that this has to be a low digit and this has to be a high digit. Excuse me. Now, if this has to be a low digit, does that give us anything? Not really. It just means really that this can't be 8 or 6, so it's 1, 2, 3, or 4. But this could still be a high digit, and we don't know that yet. Excuse me. So, we might have run into a little bit of a halt here for a second. And let's see if we can do anything further, maybe down here, which looks fairly interesting. That's kind of interesting. I like that. So we've got this black Kropki dot on our border, and we know that the F's align in terms of adjacency. So this digit right here, and it's showing the outline of a gray Kropki dot, which I think is a nice way of denoting that. So this digit and this digit are on a Kropki dot, so they share a relationship. Now, we have this 5. We know that this digit, well, this cage, in terms of what can be actually used, as if you remember, if the cage did something like this, or the path did something like this would force this to be a singular celled cage. And if we look at that closely, from the other information I set up here about black Kropki dots, this could never happen. The path could never do this because it would cut off. Well, I guess that's actually not correct. This thing could be some something like that, where it takes on multiple cells. So then if you did this, you would only be counting these two, and they could be 1 and 4, or 3 and 2, which are the two options for a 5. I guess what that kind of means is that either it's something like this, or it's or that type of path can never work. So what does that actually give us? Maybe is probably a better way to look at this now. The path could do this, and it could go in any direction. These digits, I don't know if it's going to be too helpful to mark these up yet, but I'm going to do it because I'm not entirely sure if these are going to be useful. Now this, well, no, I can't really use that information just yet because I don't know anything about how this path interacts with this, or even how this cage progresses. So it doesn't really seem like there's much there. I think we need to continue our work up here. See if we can. So we know this is a high digit. It either means that these are both high as well, or it means that one of them or both of them is a 5. Well, that would not work, would it? Because if these were both 5s, and this is a high, this would have to be 6. Well, 6 is not 5 away from 2, so these can never be 5. So these have to be high digits, because they have to be high enough to allow this digit to still be a high enough digit to be away from 2. So we can mark these as being high. Now, I'm going to type this one because we said it can't be 6. The minimum it can be is 7, because 2 to 7. And then 8 could work with 2, but 9 could work with 4. 9 could even work with the 2 as well, but if we found this would be a 4, we would clearly know that this is a 9 and these are both 8s. That wouldn't work now, would it? Now that I think about that, and I've said that out loud, it actually resonates. If this was a 4, what does that tell me? It tells me this has to be a 9, and since this is a 9 on a white Kropki, both of these have to be 8. Well, now, the 8 for both of these regions is done for. We can't use any more 8s. But when you have a 4 on a, say, a triple black Kropki dot, you have to have an 8 on it somewhere, because one side is 2, the other side is 8. So we have just broken the puzzle by saying, if this was a 4, it cannot work. So this must be a 2. And that'll give us our first bit of information. So these are no longer 2, and they're no longer 8. So, well, that helps us a little bit. How much does it help us? It's a start, what we can say. I still can't quite determine what this digit is. It's either 1, 3, or 4 at this point. I think my puppy wants to get out of the room, so give me 1 second. I'll be right back. Sorry about that. She knows better than to come in here when I'm trying to record, but she does it all the time anyway. Okay, so this has to be 1, 3, or 4, which forces this to be 2, 6, or 8. Well, it can't be 2, obviously, so this can't be 1. So we've got a 3, 4 pair. This digit has to be at least 5 away from 3 or 4, so this can no longer be 7. If this is 3, this could, well, if this is 3, this is 6, this could be 8 or 9. If this is 4, this is 8, and this has to be 9. That all works together. These digits could be a few things. I don't know that we want to necessarily get into them yet. Now this H and this H don't really do anything for me yet because I haven't gotten into here. And I think I'm going to have to get into here probably when I get something down into here to kind of correlate back over. So let's keep moving and get to where we need to be. So, yeah, I don't think these might give me anything just yet, but let me take a look around and I'll come back and maybe continue to look at what those could be if I don't see anything else. So 3, 6, 8, or 9. And these could still be anything. 2 goes with 1 and 4. This has to be a high digit, so it has to be, well, it has to be, okay, I just should have kept going with our friend German Whispers. This is either 3 or 4, so this either has to be 8 or 9, so we've created an 8-9 pair, so we can therefore say this has to be 6, this has to be 3. Good. Now, we know we can't turn right. We know we can't, well, we can't go back left because then we'd be touching orthogonally, so our path must continue downward. Let's get that in there. This 8-9 pair is going to kind of resonate down here, so let's kind of take it with us. So this could be 8 or 7. It can't be 9 because then that would force both these to be 8. This would have to be 7 or 6. Well, we've got an 8-9 pair here, so this has to be 7. This then has to be 8. This has to be 6. That 8 forces this to be a 9. And we are moving. Now this could, well, this can't be. Wait, how does that work? Did I somehow break something? I think the logic was right here because we know this has to be 7. We know this has to be 6. This 7 has to be consecutive, so it has to be 8. This has to be 9. That all works out. So maybe I've messed something up on, wait, did I? And how does my path work? This has to be low. But it can't be low if this is a 6. Something must be wrong with my logic on my path. Now, I cannot go here because I've forced my path down here. We can't put it on a black Kropki. I can't go this way because then I'm touching orthogonally. This would be the only way you can go. But that doesn't make any sense. So what is wrong? Because we know the digits are all correct. The logic we've used should be correct. This can only be 5 or 8, and it can't be either. Because this has to be a low digit. So let me just make sure what I've done wrong here. Oh, I am being stupid. Why am I being stupid? Because I forget about crossing. So, okay. I didn't screw up, which is good. I just forgot about being able to go this way. So we know it can't go this way because we can't touch that way. We now know it can't go down this way. This can't be a low digit, so it has to go this way, and then that forces it to cross over the G. And I don't know how to designate that yet because you can't do a half of something in this way. Let me get rid of that. So I'm gonna, for the moment, until I figure out where this path resets itself, I'm gonna have to just remember that that's what it is. Now let's get these in here. This is either 1 or 4, which is going to force this to be a 5. Okay, this is 1 or 4, so this has to be either 2. Ow, sugar. I didn't mean to do that. Forget I did that. 2 or 8. I'm not going to continue with that. or just leave it in there, even though I know it opened up the fog. That's the problem with trying to switch between these things and forgetting to do so. You might accidentally do something like that. Anyway, doesn't change what we're looking at, because I've already forgotten what that is. So this has to be either 5 or 8. 5 or 8? Jeez, I am falling apart. 5 or 7. This cuts over, so we know this is... Let's get our coloring back in, so I don't forget them. This coming in here must be a high digit, and it's not going to be part of the 5, so this 5 is definitely going to have to travel somewhere. The cage, that is. This 8 is either going to be seeing a 7 or a 9. This 2 or 8 is going to cross over our F and go to here. So this is either going to be a 1 or a 4, which means it is a low digit, which just further cements the fact that we know this 5 cage has to somehow get out away from the path. Because remember, there's a piece of path cutting through here, so this cannot be part of that cage. And obviously 1 or 4 is not enough to create 5. Okay. Where next to look? Now, I don't think I can necessarily say where this 5 goes, although it seems like it would be kind of the next step here, doesn't it? Because we know it comes out here, but it could very well just straight turn down and go like this, or it could continue straight across. Or do some other, wacky things that we can't quite predict until our fog is figured out. What about H? H has to touch here, but there's no clue across them, so that doesn't really mean anything. It just means that this digit can't be a 6, because they would be considered adjacent to each other. So we know the path crosses. We don't know the size of these. We don't have any digits that are definitely giving us what those are. Okay. So what about this digit? We can put in, it has to be, well, that's how we're going to have to figure it out. This has to be high, and it has to be on a black Kropki dot. So this can never be a 1. So we got our 4. That was fairly obvious, and I just didn't see it. So now we've got our little paw prints here, which is cute as can be. Now we do know something about the path, because we've got a 5 here. It's a 3-cell cage. We've only got 4 in it, so we need 1 more. This one is not part of it, so we have to come down. I wish I could do a little half something to note that this path goes back in there, but it does not seem to be in the cards. So we know this has to be a 1. Do I want to color that? I guess I can just keep on coloring. The path cannot go across a black Kropki dot. It can't go back up, but it could either go down or over. We don't quite know which one is which. This 4 either sees a 2 or an 8. And that would jive with this. That's either a 2 or an 8. Okay, we're getting little bits of knowledge coming through here. Now these two, well, this black Kropki is semi-given, I guess is the best way to put it. Oh, it's actually very, very given. Now I see it. So this Kropki dot cannot contain a 1, and it cannot contain a 4. So it can't be 1, 2, it can't be 2, 4, and it can't be 4, 8. So the only thing it can be is 3, 6. And once we put that in and look and say, oh wait, this is a high digit, so I would have already had this, but we'll follow the logic here. Anyway, we know this is a high digit, so this has to be a low digit. Well, 6 isn't a low digit, so we know this is 8. We know this is 3. We know this is 6. So we've got, let me color, so I can keep remembering what I'm doing. It's always important to get these guys colored correctly. And we'll probably run into some instances where we run out of our large digits where we know that we have to have some low digits going on. Now, this 3 already has an 8 in its cage. There's only 2 digits that could ever match up with 3 on a German Whispers. That's 8 and 9, so we have to put a 9 in. Let's get rid of that. The path, it doesn't have to continue into a cage. Question is, would it? And because I can't see anything beyond here, that might be a little bit tricky to see, but we could probably figure out what this is, because we've got a bunch of digits that are fairly well spaced apart from each other. So we know these dots, these cages or cells must be adjacent digits. So it can't be 1, 2, it can't be 2, 3, it can't be 3, 4. It could be 4, 5. It can't be 5, 6. It can't be 6, 7. It can't be 7, 8. It can't be 8, 9. So these have to be from 4 and 5, which forces these to be from 2 and 7. Now, does that really tell us much? This 9 has to go to a low digit, so one of these is low. Problem is, at least not a problem, but figuring it out, the 9, it very conveniently could follow this path, because we go from 9 down to 2, and the 2 back up to 7. That all works beautifully. If we were to cross over this way, it would force this to be a 4. Now, we wouldn't be able to go up or down on it. Well, actually, that does give us, now that I think about it. I'm doing a lot of now that I think about it's going on this one, because it doesn't hit me immediately. It just takes me a second when I start explaining, and maybe because I'm explaining things, it doesn't register as quite easily if I was just staring at this being silent. But if this was to be a 9 to a 4, since we know we can't go up or down with our path, it would have to continue. Well, if that's a 4, both of these have to be 9, so that can never happen. So this has to be 2 and 7, and that's where the path has to travel. It can't go back up. So we get our low digit, our high digit. This has to be a low digit, and it's not part of our killer cage, because this is on the path already. This one has to be from 1, 3, or 4. It cannot be 4, and it cannot be 3, so it has to be 1. So now this either goes up and over. These 2 digits are what creates the 9, or it continues over, and these 2 digits are what create the 9. Either way, one of these is a 4 or a 5. So we have to use up at least one more of these. Now, can we do anything with this? We know it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 8. I'm just going to write those out. Cannot be 1, 2, or 6 here. This cannot be 3. This cannot be 1. It could be 2. It can be 4, 4, 8, and it could be 3, 6, and it could be 4, 8 there. So those are all possibilities. Now, if this were to continue this way, we know it has to just keep going because it can't go up a Kropki dot. So if it was a 1, this would have to be the 8, and then this would have to be a 3, which works, because this would be 8, 4 here, and 8, 3 here. Now, if it were to go up, it couldn't continue up because this is consecutive. It would have to cut in. So this would be a high digit. this would have to be a 2, because it would have to be a low digit, and it couldn't be a 4, because this would cause this to be a 9. It doesn't work in a couple of ways. But after that, does anything work? Let's put that, well, let's just look, you said this would have to be a 2, because it has to be a low digit. Yeah, and it can't be 4, because that would have to be 9. So this would have to be a 2. This would have to be a 4. This would have to be a 7 or an 8. I think that would work. Maybe I need to remove these digits because the multiple options might be confusing me. I said this could work perfectly fine, right? 1 to 8 to 3. No issues there. This would be 1 to 7 or 8 and 2. And then after that, it could turn up or it could turn over, or it could go straight through, I guess is the better way to do it. It's not turning. So if this was a 2, let's say it did this. Let's get rid of these just as examples. We know if it does this way, it seems to work. We can't figure anything else out. If it goes up and then turns over, we know this would have to be a 2. This would have to be a 7 or an 8. Now, if this is a 2, that forces this to be a 4. This has to be, one of these two has to be a 7 or an 8, because it would have to continue. And I think those all work. Okay. So what am I missing? Am I not seeing something cutting across again? It's possible. Oh, well, I can go back here. I didn't notice that. I could go back there. Maybe I need to be going back and forth a little bit. I was trying to continue this theme of logic. But if this is an 8, this clearly can't be a 4, because it would force this to be a 9. So this has to be the 1 and the 4, which forces this to be the 1. Now, if that's a 1, this has to be a 2. The F connects correctly there. Now, okay, maybe I can go back to, I'm going to shoot that for a second and come back to here. If this is a 1, this has to be an 8. That being an 8, it is removed from this, so this has to be a 4-5 pair. If this is an 8, this has to be a 4. That does not work. So this path does have to go up, and it does have to cut over somehow, which forced this to be a 2 by our logic. Let's make sure that's correct before we continue, because I don't want to erroneously put something in. So this has to be low, because it's 2 along from another low. It can't be 4, because that would force us to be 9. So this is 2. This is 4. Good. Let's put those as low. This is a high digit. It has to be 7 or 8. Now, this being 7 or 8, it has to get down far enough to get to a black Kropki usable digit, or it has to get up, I guess would be a better way to put it. Now, if this was an 8, this would go down to a 7, or it would go up to a 9. Neither one is acceptable on a black Kropki, so this has to be 7. Now, we know that these two digits actually right here have to equal 9, so I can get my 5 and my 4. Now this, we said it could go up to an 8. The only problem with that is force this to be a 4. They've got 2 4s staring right at it, so this has to be 6. This has to be 3. Now, let's continue coloring. I want to make sure I keep up with it, because I tend to want to hurry along with the puzzle instead of keeping with things. But now our path must continue this way, because it 2 can't be next to another small digit, which means this has to be first off, it has to be a high digit, and it can't be 7 or 9, so it has to be 8. Put that there. We've got these two digits left, which have to be 5 and 9, which are not determined as of yet. We can kind of jump in here with some Sudoku and just throw these in. 1, 4, and 6. Well, that gives us something because we've got a 1, 6 here. So this is 4, and I'm going to sneeze. No, I'm not. This 6 also sees this, so this has to be 1, 6. Ah, there we go. Where does our... So we cannot continue our path up and down, so it has to continue through here. It could go to the 6, except for the fact that if it went to the 6, it would have to go up or down again and have a 1 in it, which does not work. So this cannot go to the 6. I'm not going to put X's and stuff like that on this, which you can do to say where the path does not go. I just don't feel like I want to go in that way. So I think we do know actually that this has to do this. And why do we know that? Well, because if it didn't go up, it would have to go down, because we said it can't go to the 6. And if it went down like this, it would have to swoop around and come back up. Is that true? Not necessarily, because I almost forgot about the paths meeting up again. It could do this and then pop back out up here. So let's remove that false logic from our brain. Now, can we do anything with this bad boy? It could be 1, 2. It can't be 2, 3. Well, it can't be 2, 3, 3, 4, 4, 5, 5, 6. But it also could be 7, 8. So those are the possibilities there. Now we know this can't be 1 or 8. So this can't be 2 or 7. Where can we look this way? I don't know if we're going to get any Sudoku out of this. I mean, one of these has to be a 1. I don't know if I want to get into Sudoku, just base Sudoku, to be honest. It might help me here, but I'm not positive. Oh, it does actually. As I say that, where does the 2 go? And this, it can't go there, it can't go there, and it can't go in those. So this has to be a 2, which gives us a 1. So there we go. Let's put our high-lows in here so that they're obvious. This 5, 9 actually does see the 7, which I just noticed now. We need a 5, 7, and an 8 in these, and nothing's really ruling them out. I mean, we know that one of these has to be a 7. That's all that gives us. It's not all that useful information at the moment. That was interesting. The Fog of War. This used to be a gray little circle. Once I put this 2 in there, it seems like it disappeared. Or once I got rid of the Fog of War in that area, it seems like it disappeared. That's interesting. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but just something I kind of noticed. What about going this way? These have to be from 5, 7, and 9 as well. Well, that does actually tell me. There has to be a 7 in this row. There's no 7 in any of these. This can't be 7 because of that, so this is 7. This has to be from 5 or 9. This row has to have a 3 and an 8 in it. Not too useful because it just says no 3 here, no 8 here. Is there anything more I can do with this path? If I were to determine what this is, I could tell you whether or not this went down or up. Well, maybe. If it's a 9, it doesn't determine, but if it's a 5, it does. So it looks like our end goal is going to be somewhere in here. I think we're going to be crossing over a border somewhere up in here and coming down. Finalize. But that's just a hunch. Can I do anything with these 3 right now? We need a 3. Doesn't rule out any of those. We need an 8 and a 9. None of them are ruled out, so the answer to that question was no. Okay, where's the next step then? Now, if I was to come down here, could I come up and over? The answer is yes, because this could be a 9 and this could be a 9. Or I could just simply come straight across to here. So we've only got one more low digit in this area. Now, if I were to come this way, that would actually work fairly well, because you'd put the low digit 3 here. These would both be high digits, force this to be a 5. Now, if I went up this way, that kind of blows all of that out of the water. Well, no, that doesn't. Water. Did I say water? Wow. A little bit of a Jersey leaking out of me there. It's been a long time since I said water. Let's look at that, because this actually does determine this path. If this path comes this way, it forces this to be a 3, because this would have to be high, this would have to be low. There's only one low digit left. We've got a 3 sitting right here, so the path does not come down this way. So it must go up, which means this has to be 9, 5, 9. Okay, let's get our colors in. These are 3, 8, and 5. That's not 5. That's not 3. That's not 8. Okay, so we are not crossing over here. This could still come over this direction and then turn up, or it could go up this way. I don't see a determination of how we could figure that out just yet. So maybe we do need to look a little bit more Sudoku. We know there's a 1 in one of these. We know there's a 1 in one of these. Because there might be a crossing pattern where we could say, well, it can't go this way because it would bump into something over here. That's possible. Not saying it's a given, but it's possible. I might want to put a little, I can't put a circle there. I wanted to put a circle here so I can remember that those two connected a little bit more graphically, but it's not going to work. So let's go back to our Sudoku real quick. I don't see anything useful on the 2s or the 3s. We have a 4, so this is a 4 by Sudoku. One of these is a 4 by Sudoku. One of these. And that's pretty much all we're going to get out of those. The 5s, I don't think there's going to be a ton. Yeah, it's one of these 2. It's one of those 3. Not too good. 6s maybe? No, there's not enough going on there. How about 7? One of these is a 7. One of these is a 7, which we had already determined. Okay. 8s, we're just going to finish off our look at Sudoku just to make sure, and then 9s. Okay, so one of these has to be a 9. That's really all that says, and I'll put that 7 in there. Just for poops and giggles. Okay, so where do we look next? Our path has more or less been determining how we move about this puzzle, so I think we need to look back at it, and it looks like this solve is going to be a good long one, which is fine by me, because I enjoy it. So, can we go up? The answer would be yes. If we did so, we'd have to turn back. So we'd go up here. This would have to be a low digit, so we clearly couldn't do either of those. We'd have to cut back over here to a high digit. The only digit, well, that does actually tell me something. It's amazing how these little things, if you look at them for a second, they actually tell you something. If we were to bring this path up here, we would have to turn over. This would be a low digit. This would be a high digit. The only high digit left is a 6. So that would force this to be a 1. We've got a 1 already right there. So this has to cut over. And it has to get into my 7. And is that going to tell me I need to cross over my C boundary? It does, because I cannot turn up anymore, because a 7 can only go up the 1 or a 2 on a German Whisperer. So my path now, maybe I will put like little X's here. So I cross over on C. So this has to be a low digit, and it has to be 1 or 2, and it's not a 1. So there we go. We get ourselves a 2, and we get our little cute paw prints. Now, I've got a 2 that's on the path that doesn't count towards a 6 cell. I have to either turn up or down or go straight. Whatever way I go could determine whether or not these markings were usable for this cage. Now, clearly we can't have a 4 cell. We already taken one of them out for the 6, because 1, 2, 3 is the most you could possibly do. If we were to go up, would that do anything for us? It would mean this has to be a high digit, which would force the 1 over here. And we could still get out and over, I guess. So we can't necessarily rule out these two. If it went down, it would have no effect on anything, essentially. It just means this digit would have to be high. I almost saw something where it couldn't go up. This could still be a 9. We see 6, 7, and 8, but we don't see 9 over here. What about this one? This digit, if we continued straight, it would have to be a high digit. It can't be 7 or 9, but it couldn't be 6, obviously, because this is a 2. So this would have to be an 8. It's the only thing that would fit there. We can't have a single... Well, is that actually true? I guess we technically could have a single cell for this 6, and it would go right there. Neither of these could be single celled for this cage as a 6, because we've got these two 6s here. Okay. Now, do we know anything over here? Because there's not a ton left to do here. This is either a 3 or a 5, but that's not giving me anything of real value. What clues do we have that we haven't used? Or do I need to go back now that we have a 2 here to look at our 2s? Well, there we go. We know that none of those are 2s, so this has to be a 2. Okay. I wasn't quite expecting a mix-up of having to go back in and do basic Sudoku on this one, but perfectly fine by me. So one of these has to be 2, so we've got our last set of 2s, our X1. Now, we either know that the end of our path is up here, or it's in here. Now, I postulated that it's probably going to be down here somewhere. Still, it's just a guess. What can this be? Is there anything that's going to tell us what this is, I guess? We know it can't be 1 and 2. This can't be 4. This can't be 6. So this could be a 3, 8. Well, this can't be 8 either. And this couldn't be 3. So this is either a 3, 6 this way, or it's a 4, 8 this way. Don't see where I can determine that just yet. So I think we're going to go back to our path unless there is something crying out in Sudoku. Because I did get some more 2s, but I think I figured out. So I'd already done all this other stuff, I think. So I don't want to go back to there just yet. Okay, Nala, where are you moving to? Should we go through our options again? can we do this? If we do this, this has to be a 9. It would then have to figure out some way to get out of here, which seems like it's perfectly possible to do so. So it could do that. 9, 4 works fine. It could go up here, and this could be some, well, this can't ever be low, so it couldn't do that. Because we see all the low digits right there. Maybe we need to look at high and low for just a second to see if there's anything that really pops out. Well, it doesn't. Well, yeah, it does actually. Or does it? We need a 1. Now, the 1 could be there or one of these two. So we don't quite know that. Okay, let's go back to our path. So that is a possible option. Well, that isn't, but this is. Because it could be low, high, low, and then it would jump back to a high. Either this could be a high, or this could be a high. So it seems like there are options there. Now, if it was to be here and go straight through, this would have to be a high digit, and it would have to be an 8. And then it would have to turn, but it cannot turn. And here's why. If this is a 2, and we say it's going this way, this has to be an 8. It sees 7 and 9. It can't be a 6 because a 2 is already, because it would be next to it too. So this forces this to be an 8. This forces this to be 6 and 3. This would be a 4. We can't turn either way. We'd have to turn down. We've already previously said this cannot be a single cell 6 gauge because it sees a 6. So we cannot go this direction. So we either go up or we go down. Let's take a look at the down. If it went down, this could be a 7, which works perfectly fine. And it would have to continue down again, and this would have to be a 1. And then it would go back up high, and do whatever it wants to do. That works fine, it seems. So did I miss something maybe up here about how this couldn't work? You said this is a 2. This has to go up here. This would have to be a 9. It can't go up. It would have to turn to go to some low digit, which it would have to be a 4. Oh, that was it. This would have to be a 4 because it sees 1, 2, and 3. So if this is a 4, it has to have 9 on 2 sides of it. It cannot do that. So our path does go down. So this digit here is high. It is not 6, 8, or 9, so it must be 7. The path then can, well, the 7 can give me a 7. Oh, that 7 now knocks this out. So that is, so I screwed something up. That didn't work. Well, that's no fun. Let me relook at this then. This is a 2. Stop using that thing. This is a 2. We said it can't go this way. Because if it does, this 2 would have to go to a high digit. That would force this to be a 4. This to be a 6 or an 8. I think I said it had to be a 6. It doesn't matter. And then it would have to go back down, and that does not work. This, if it went up, this would have to be high. I'm wondering, no, because that would be a diagonal. I was seeing maybe if there was something that cuts across, it would determine this. But if it went up here, this would have to be a high digit. It could not continue up because there's no other low digit it can go to. It would have to turn. This would be high, and it would have to be 9. This would turn. It would have to be a 4, and then it can't go anywhere. I think that path is correct. But if this is a 2, this has to be a high digit. Oh, did I say it had to be a 7? It did not have to be a 7. That's where I messed up. My bad. Okay. So this has to be 7 or 9, and we're going to ignore the fact that I know which one it isn't. Now, where does the path go from here? If it went down, it would have to go to a 1. If it went over, it would have to go to a 3, because there's a 4 looking at it and sees 1 and 2. Let's run through that possibility. If it turned here, this would have to be a 3. So it'd force this to be a 7. That 3 would then have to hook up either one of these with another high digit, and it would have to be an 8 because we already had 9. So one of these two would be an 8. That seems to be okay. I don't want to go too far with it. Now, if it went down, we said this has to be a 1. If this has to be a 1, it then has to turn. And it has to take on... Well, I guess the better way to look at it is, can we ever do this path looking at this 6 cage? That's probably the better way to look at it. I didn't visualize that. If this does this, it can never go back to the 6. So the 6 will be a 3-cell cage that has to equal 6. So it would have to be 1, 2, 4. We already have a 2 in here. So that doesn't work. So we cannot come down here and then continue. We have to move over. Now that we've moved over, didn't we determine what this had to be? So this is 2 that goes to either 7 or 9. This has to be either, well, it has to be a 3, just period. So that which forces this to be 9. Now the path has to find its way to here. It either goes this way or this way. Let's color you in. And anything else I've missed, just because I hadn't been focusing on coloring. Now we know it has to go one of these 2 directions. Is that something on my... No, that's something on the thing. Okay, but it was on my screen first. I was going to pick at it. So we have to go high, and it has to be an 8. So one of these 2 has to be an 8. Now, is it possible we could do a little loop-de-loop? No, it is not, because either way we'd come around, we'd have some. So it has to come into one of these 2 and then end here. No matter what, this has to be a small digit. It can't be 3 or 4, so it has to be 1 or 2. It could be either. Now, if this can't be a 1, because it would force this to be a 2. So this is a 2. Oh, look at this little mouse. I guess Nala found what got into the backyard, and it's still there. So if this is a 2, I said one of these is 8. This has to be a 3, because it can't be a 1. It has to be consecutive. The mouse is 3. Interesting. Little homage to a 3 blind mice, maybe. If this is 3, then maybe we're getting into... yeah, we're getting into Sudoku now, I think, 'cause most of the clues have been taken up. So that's going to force this to be 4 and 8. That forces this to be 8, and we can finish our path. And let's get our coloring done, just so we can keep on it. Do we have... So let's just go through our basics. No, not color, I don't want color. Ones. We haven't gotten there yet on the 1s. 2s, I think we're pretty much done. Yeah, this has to be 2. Get rid of those. I think that was all of them. 3s should be done. Yep, this has to be a 3. Fours. 4 is done. Yep. We know these two digits have to equal 6. We'll see what that comes in a minute. 6s, can we finalize those bad boys? No, not necessarily. 7s. These two is a 7. 8s, let's check these real quick just to make sure. And then 9, and then we'll go back to our puzzle. Yeah, here we go. We do have a 9 here, so that does force this to be a 1, which forces this to be a 5, which is going to make this a 6. And let's get coloring done. This is a given digit. It is 5. These are, say, 7 and 6. We've got a 6. Seeing that. So this is 6 and 7. Those are both large digits. These are 8 and 9. We don't have either one of those yet, but they're both large digits. This is a given. It is the 5. I could probably get most of my 5s done, or they'll make a liar out of you every time. This is not a 2. This is not 8, clearly. So I need a 1, so the 1 has to go there. I need 6 and 7, so we've got 7 and 6. We should be cruising now. 1 here sees the 1 here. Get rid of that. These need a 4 and an 8 in them somewhere. None of these could be 4, so that's 4. That's out. These have to be from 5, 7, and 8. Not super useful. What about this digit's a given? So it is 6. Trying to avoid basic Sudoku, if you hadn't noticed, just for the fun of it. We need a 5, we need an 8 and a 9. Maybe I'll have to go back to it. 1s are done. 2s are done. 3s are not done. 4s are done. 5s we know are not done yet. 6s are done. 7s, not quite. Well, yes, they are. Well, yes, they are. There's no 7 in any of these, so this is 7, 5, 3, 8, 9, 8. I will color these before I put the last digit in. Don't worry about that. This has to be 9. This has to be 5. So let's get all of our large digits colored and all of our small digits colored. And we are left with this being a 7, which is large. This is a large 9, and this is going to be a large 8. Let's just put those in. 9 and 8. That's going to force this to be a 3, this to be a 5. Oh, we get a doot, which is always nice. This is a large 8. And there we go. The solution looks great. The backyard intruder turned out to be a mouse that was looking for nesting material. Aw, Nala was happy to shed some fur for her. How nice of Nala. She has more than enough anyway. So, that was a bit of a long solve, but I think it was beautiful in the end. I'm going to delete this color just for a second. Okay, I didn't need you to do that. Just so we can look at our path a little more clearly. So this is the path that Nala took to find her mouse. Wonderful puzzles, they always are. This one actually took quite a bit longer than they normally do. I'm sure part of that had to be with my narrating. Instead of solely focusing on this, but it was still a great puzzle. took over an hour overall. But I hope you all enjoyed that one, and I will see you in the next one. Thanks. Bye.